Okay, we're holding Hilchos Basar B'Chol Siman Tzaddik Vav. We did Sif Aleph, and we're going to go on to Sif Beis. But before we go on to Sif Beis, we need to clarify some Nakudas, important concepts. Shaila actually came up in my kitchen today. My daughter asked me, she cut some zucchini with a fleishik knife. Can she use that zucchini with pasta that's going to have cheese?
No, but it's not about harav.
Okay, so immediately, of course, what does this bring to mind? A little bit of what we've learned, that obviously a knife is a problem. Lechatchila, you shouldn't really do that.
Generally, you shouldn't have in mind to eat cheese
when
you're cutting it.
You definitely don't want to use a fleishik knife when you know in advance. Why put yourself in that situation? The answer to this question really will be in Sif Hey. In Sif Hey we will get a better understanding, because in Sif Hey we will be dealing with things that are not so chorev. So that's one of the giveaways here, is that obviously there is a difference between duchka de sakina involving a davar chorev, which is what the beginning of Siman deals with, and something which is not so chorev at all. So then you may have a question, well, what about zucchini a davar chorev or not? Okay. Now, to make things a little bit easier on the kasha, she claims that it was not used, at least not recent, for fleish. And
was it used hot with fleish?
And that's the thing. From what she says, it was never used. It's a fleishik, but it was never used. I don't know if that's if it was never used, but it could be it was never used with hot fleish. We have sfeikas. We have several sfeikas here. As we said, sometimes the multiple sfeikas make the shaila easier. I told her she should just rinse out the zucchini and go ahead and use it with the pasta.
Probably she had in mind to have.
Yeah.
I don't think she cut a zucchini and said, I'll have it with pasta.
Yeah. Now, but if you will look at Sif Hey, which we'll get to it next week, Mitzvah Shem, Sif Hey introduces another concept, that with some food items, you don't need a netila, but you need a greda. Greda, or in other places it would be greda. And there's we've talked a little bit about it before, that there's several levels of removing a bit of isser. It could be through netila, it could be through klipa, it could be through hadacha. And of course here we have something in between hadacha, which is the most lenient one, and a klipa, which is called greda, which means to rub it off. Rub off the edges of where the sakin touched, or where the knife touched. And that's what Sif Hey is going to talk about, those items that are not sharp, if they require anything. Halacha, the reason why I told her that she doesn't even have to do that, is because, I think it's the Pri Megadim, that holds that when we're dealing with an Eino Ben Yoima, and it's something which is not chorif, alright, you don't really need anything. B'di Evet. We're saying B'di Evet because you don't want to use it. You don't want to get yourself into a situation where you're doing this on all the time. As we've covered several times, the Chachamim were goyzer sometimes, otu. If you remember that. Otu means don't do this because you may come to do that. Well, if you're going to be using fleishik knives to cut your vegetables, and eventually you will forget. You use any vegetable, you use it with milk, even ben yoima perhaps. So that lechatchila, you don't want to do that. When you know in advance you're going to be good. The question is B'di Evet. So since we're talking about B'di Evet, what is B'di Evet? So that's the machlokes we have on this Ramah. The last Ramah that we did on Sif Aleph tells us that Yesh Oimim Shimchot Achtzum B'Sakin Shel Isur Kuloi Osur. The whole thing is Osur, not just Kedei Netila. Who's that? That's the Rashba. V'chenim Chotchu B'Sakin Shel Basar Osur Kuloi B'Cholov. You can't use it. The whole thing is Asur. You don't take a Netila. V'chen Ramah says V'chen Lo Yagin Lechatchila Ava B'di Evet En Le'asara Kedei Netila. On this Ramah that says Lechatchila, we hold like the Rashba, that the whole thing is Asur. But the di'eved, all you need is a kedei netila. What is this kedei netila? What is this b'di'eved? So the Shach says, what's b'di'eved? But b'di'eved shenizbashel, if it was cooked already. Ben b'sakin shel basar, ben b'sakin shel oive kochavim, all you need is a kedei netila. You really did it by mistake. Okay? It was a sakin of a goy, it's a treif, or it was a sakin of a flesh, and it's already cooked. Then you don't have to be machmir like the Rashba that to figure out kedei shishin. You just have to figure out kedei netila. the shear that you figure is kedei netila. So on that the Shach says, what is b'di'evet if it's already cooked? And on that, I told you that the others who hold, I think it's the Minchas Yaakov, Minchas Yaakov holds, no, that lechatchila means, of course you're not supposed to do it. B'di'evet means that he already cut it. The goy already cut it. You already used the knife to cut the vegetable, you can go ahead and use the vegetable now to cook it. Don't do it lechatchila, obviously. But b'di'evet does not mean if it's already cooked, according to the Minchas Yaakov. B'di'evet means if it was already cut. But he makes a distinction. There's a distinction between Isser and Basar and Chalav. By Isser you have no choice. It's already cut. I mean, Isser is Isser. Right? So you say, okay, he already cut it. With Basar, he's going to hold like the Shach. With Basar, he's going to say no, but the evidence is only if you cooked it already. Because why? Who says you have to eat it?
Onion, eat non-dairy.
Exactly. Eat it with your cholent, if it's a fleishik knife, right? You don't have to have it with dairy. With Isser, you're stuck. It's an Isser, it's a treif knife. So Minchas Yaakov says, by Isser, but the evidence is if you already cut it. This is your only onion. Whatever.
Aha.
Right?
So what he's saying is, Chila is when you slice.
Right.
The Eved is once the...
Yes.
So when you cut it, you have no more choice.
No more choice.
Because you can't do anything with that onion.
Yeah.
You'll have to
not if it's an Isser onion. Right.
You're throwing it out, so this is already...
That's already called b'di'evet, which is a nice chiluk. You understand? Yeah. By Isser, I mean, you have no choice. It's already cut. What are you going to do with it? It's done with.
Give it to the goat.
Give it away. Yeah. But
don't try to feed it to your dog. Dog like onions.
Not onions. No. But basar and chalav, you already did it. Okay, you don't have to have it with the milk. You can have it with your cholent. So you still have the possibility of using it for something else. That's the Minchas Yaakov. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting chiluk. All right. Now, the problem that we have with Sif Aleph involved possibly a sakin that was not clean. And then, of course, it would be a concern according to the Mechaber, even if it's an Eino Ben Yoima. Because the Mechaber is the one that holds Yesh Oimrim, the Hu Adin Eino Ben Yoima Vu Mekunach. That the din of cutting also applies to knives, Lechatchila, that are not Ben Yoima. In other words, we're Machmer, and a lot of places are really Machmer with this, that if, as we're going to soon see, that if it's a knife, it's a knife. We're going to be Machmer with Dover Charef, even if it's Eino Ben Yoima. We're not going to hold not bar not, right, and so forth. So it's important to note that if the sakin is mekunach, if it's clean, then it's less of a problem in an Eino Ben Yoima. In other words, the mekunach that the Mechaber mentioned, or the Eino mekunach, I should say, poses a problem with Eino Ben Yoima. But if it's mekunach, then it's not going to be, at least according to that shita, it's not going to be a problem in Eino Ben Yoima. So the question is, how do you get a sakin mekunach? In other words, what a sakin gets dirty. You know what would constitute a sakin mekunach? Because right now you're taking a knife, and you know that it was used that day, okay, and you want to use it, and you use it, and you say, oh no, what did I just do? I just cut an onion with a fleishik knife. I really wanted to use that onion with melicha, but it was mekunach, right? Does it help or no? If it's ben yoimoy, it doesn't help. If that sakin was used that day, that's the halacha that we had. A sakin that was used that day for fleish, mekunach, doesn't help you. You still have a problem, and at least what you could do is, if you didn't chop it up in pieces, is take a kedei netila. That you could do, if you really need to. Instead of, that's the only onion you have. The next thing you can do is go to the neighbor and ask, do you have a spare onion? Yeah, I don't like this whole idea of borrowing, but sometimes, in Israel it's very common. Each one borrows from each other. All right. But the question is, if it was Eino Ben Yoima, say, okay, at least I didn't use it for a day. Well, you didn't use it, but wait a minute, was it clean or not? Well, I cleaned it. How did you clean it? So that's a question that's also discussed. What constitutes cleaning when you know that it was dirty? When you know that it was dirty. If it wasn't dirty because all you did was use it for something cold and not greasy, then, okay, that's not a problem. I mean, there's a lot of things we can cut that will not have shamnunis on it, fats. Well, here we're talking about it did have shamnunis, In other words, it was the worst case scenario. It did have shamnunis. You cut a real fatty steak with it yesterday. So what would make this a sakin mekunach? So some say all you need to do is to clean it with a towel. And that would be that's what's understood from the mechaber. The mekunach would be sufficient. In other words, mekunach means clean. It doesn't say that it was hudach, that it was rinsed. It doesn't say ne'itza bekarka. Some, however, would require for something that had shamnunis on a knife, would require ne'itza bekarka. Some would require, at the very least, some sort of hadacha. Not just mekunach means I just went ahead and cleaned it. That may not be sufficient to consider it a sakin mekunach for purposes of relying on eina ben yom. Oh, it's because it's eina ben yom, but it's clean. It's fine. Well, is it really clean? No, eina ben yom. No, sure, no. Because remember, if it's a ben yom sakin that was used today, even if it's completely clean 100%, that's the problem. Yeah, the problem is in the eina ben yom, but we know it was not clean. But I just cleaned it. Okay, how did you clean it? Or what is required to clean it to make it be considered clean? So some say mekunach from the mechaber is mashma that even just a little bit with a towel will be fine. And then I don't have to worry about it, because if I hold like the shita that eino ben yomo is okay. Some say no, you would need it, if you had shamnunis, you would need ne'itza bekarka. Ne'itza bekarka is a solution for knives in certain circumstances. We saw a couple, especially when you want to use it for cold stuff. A fleshik knife of a goy. You're down in South America. That's all he has. He's going to cut up for some. If you can do ne'itza bekarka, you can get away with it with cold stuff. What?
Ne'itza bekarka, it has to have certain quality.
Yes. Yeah, it depends on the kind of a knife, if it has gumuis or not. That's a whole kuf base. Yeah, in Hagolas Kelim it discusses it. Yeah.
When we talk about hadacha here,
oh, that's right. That's why some say it does not. Some say a good rinsing would do it, but so, we look at some things that were washed, even in the dishwasher, still has a film on it. Even though maybe that doesn't really constitute still Isur Shanunis. But sometimes you're right. By the way, they say that if your hands are greasy, use cold water, not hot water. Or was it the other way around? Remember? One of them does not do a good job in removing grease.
I would have thought cold would do a good job, because the hot water will dissolve it, and it'll come off more easily.
I don't, yeah.
Depends on what kind of grease.
Depends on the grease, yeah. Anyway, you want to use soap with the water too.
So it's okay.
Why?
So then
oh yeah, that's for sure. That's a good point. Yeah, use soap. It would be nothing. And actually, since you mentioned soap, we do tend to use in our rinsing soap. No, I'm saying detergent or whatever, whether it's in the dishwasher or in the sink. We don't just rinse things these days, especially when they get very dirty. We tend to use all kinds of detergents that you can technically say that the shamnunis has become pogum too, if it was ever there. But you're right, the rinsing alone may not be sufficient sometimes. It depends on how much grease it had, and that's why some require ne'itza bekarka. But again, it all depends on.
The truth is,
if you really clean it very, very well, and you look at it and you see it's clean, then it's clean. It's only when you're not aware, when you're just rinsing it in water and you're just throwing it in.
Using a
yeah.
But rubbing it properly with a paper removal.
We'll remove it. Yeah, that's what this issue is all about here. In other words, what would constitute a good clean knife? Yeah, you have.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, good. So you have the experience.
I cut it up, and subsequently I want to cut the paper. No, I understand that. I'm just saying in our case.
You said paper works.
Good question.
I don't know.
I never used cloth to do such a thing. Cloth.
Okay. Anyway, if I have a chance, remind me later. I'll check it in Siman Kuf Chof Aleph again to see
the paper towels are very
what the mechaber says inside. All right, let's go on. We find here in the mechaber here in Sif Aleph also just another point that he says that kedei netila is sufficient. So there's a little bit of a question in the mechaber. It's Siman Sadik Daled. If you remember, that was the halacha where he cut a piece of hot knife piece of hot meat, the sakin cholev. We call a chaticha surah. There's no shishim. Keneged mokam asakin. Shechot chabosa. Avalim eino ben yoimo. He took a knife that was not ben yoimo and he cut a hot piece of steak. Or if he doesn't know if it was a ben yoimo, it's only asus kedei klipa.
Who is he using?
A Melicha knife. Yeah. Right. So over there was only kedei klipa.
And why would the Melicha knife have absorption? What was done with this Melicha knife?
Okay, that's an additional point that you're bringing from the Aruch HaShulchan that we discussed.
Yeah.
But let's assume that this milk knife was used with hot stuff. But otherwise, you're right. You can, there may be a situation where if milk knives and spoons and forks are only used with klisheni or with cold stuff, which they ordinarily are, then you don't have a problem. But I think knives, from time to time, you do end up cutting, like you said, the hot meat, something. Okay. So anyway, that's the case we're talking about. So the Mechaber says if it was a Eino Ben Yom and Siman Sadik Dalet, all you need is a klipa. That's a big difference between a klipa and requiring shishim connected the whole sakin. So the question is, why does the Mechaber, in using a sakin and a hot knife that's not Ben Yom there, say kedei klipa, and here say kedei netila? The Maisa, so there's a Shachan Taz there in that Siman that there's no real requirement for a klipa there. It's Eino Ben Yomo. It's not a double chorif, right? You're not going to have a problem over there. It's Eino Ben Yomo like anything else. It's pogum. So the Taz says that klipa is just an extra chumrah. That even if you were to have shishim, in some cases you would need a klipa. In other words, the Taz says we're talking about it in a situation where you already have shishim.
So you have shishim, Ben Yomo.
Yeah.
And now you're going to remove the klipa.
And still need to remove a klipa. It's a chumrah. Yeah, he says that's the klipa the Mechaber is talking about. That it's an extra chumrah that you remove the klipa, even with the Eino Ben Yom. Okay, that's the Taz. The Shach says very differently. The Shach says there's a big difference between here and there. Why do you need kedei netila here? Because what do you have here? You have two things. You have the churfe, the sakina, and the churfe and the davacharif. You have the two things that bring out much more taste. You have the radish or whatever it is, the ducha, the sakina, the sharpness of the knife cutting through, plus this the vegetable that is charif. So here you get more out. You need netila. Here you don't have so much coming out. In other words, the whole question is, because over there he's talking about even by Eino Ben Yomo. So, and here you would have to say that this is according to the Shita that holds that this would apply also in a Eino Ben Yomo. Because the Mechaber in Tzadik Vav says only Yesh Oimrin, the Wadin Eino Ben Yomo. Right? So assuming, according to the ones who say that even Eino Ben Yomo, then why take a netila here and there? So the Shah says, I think that's a pretty good way of explaining it. The two cases are quite different. Here we're talking about double charif and a knife, and there we're not talking about a double charif. So if you want to be machmir here, it's only going to be a kedei klipa. No reason to be machmir kedei netila because you don't get as much out. In some tzaddik vav you're going to get more out. How much more? Kedei netila. I think this is a good chiluk between the two of them. All right. The next nekuda was legabe. We said that the Mechaber had a good idea. You don't want to take off an atila. You can taste it, right? So we spoke about tasting it. So on that, there's also Taz and Shach. I think it's a good idea to just mention it here. Taz brings down the Torah's Chatos that we're not bekim in Te'ima. We've seen that before too. And therefore, we're not going to use that. Simple. We're not bekim, we don't rely on it, and that's it. The Shach, however, says that this whole thing about Te'ima actually here may help you occasionally, because what we don't rely on the Te'ima is only really a lechatchila din, that we don't use it. But b'di'evet, if you know that there was no tam, basar, and it's already cooked, you're not going to answer the milk. So the Shach would agree that b'di'evet, if you knew for sure that there was no tam there of any basar, somehow you were able to taste it, you can be matir it. I mean, you don't have to be worried about it. So he actually is lenient with te'ima, but b'di'evet. Whereas the Taz says we don't know about te'ima. Also, interesting, two different approaches, two different opinions on how to deal with te'ima, as opposed to actually slicing off the netah. He takes it out.
How does the shach make the statement that he knows that there's no?
Because he tasted it. He went ahead and tasted it anyway.
Okay.
He somehow tasted it, yeah.
Isn't there a risk
In doing what?
There's a significant risk there.
Why?
Because what if you taste it, it's there?
No.
Then you have a problem.
No, you don't have a problem.
As opposed to relying on a chafei.
No, remember, we're not talking about Isurim here necessarily.
I understand that.
It's Basar or Cholov, so you can take...
Together is still
Oh, together? Yeah, but here it's not together. You haven't cooked it yet, remember? You cut the onion. Oh, well, still, it tastes like meat. There's some flavor in there, in the onion. And it is interesting because chemically speaking, I guess it does work like that. The sharpness, the acidity is able to extract some of that time. The Chachamim told us that, so apparently it does work. But I guess I can imagine that working itself through. Just look at what Easy-Off does to your oven. All that acid, it burns. It does. These things do have some koach. Not as much as bishul, perhaps, of bringing out whatever's in the walls of the keli, but a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
You're not even being harvested, things like lemon.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next. We're going to talk about that soon. Yeah. Okay. Perhaps before we go to sifes, just maybe one or two more ideas. Let's say you have an onion that was cooked. You made onion soup. Now you took the onion and you took your fleishik knife and you cut it in half. You're going to use parv onion. You made onion soup, not in a cholent. You want to use this onion now in the milchiks. Can you? Because what happened here? You cooked it. Cooking it perhaps diminishes the amount of sharpness in it. Yeah, it's a machlokes, yeah. Yeah. It's a machlokes achronim. I don't think that Rambam. Yeah. I think it's only machlokes achronim I saw only achronim was thinking about it. What you're talking about is yeveshim, which is the next thing we'll talk about.
No.
But cooked,
What if it was
yeah. It could be, but anyway, it is a machlokes, and machlokes achronim at least, and it all will depend on the circumstances. It all depends really on, do we detect, I guess, depending on the vegetable, depending on if it's an onion, or if it's a radish, if it's something else, does it still retain? It's a question of metzias. Does it really retain still some of its sharpness? It could be very, very cooked and have lost all of its vitamins, like they say. Once you cook something, it really loses everything. Its power. It's cooked. You take garlic. Garlic, it's interesting. Garlic, if you fry it, they tell you that the good qualities of garlic, by the way, are not to eat it raw. To eat it slightly fried. Not cooked, not raw, a little bit fried. That brings it out, and it's not lost. Cooking it removes a tremendous amount of whatever. It still has some value, nutritional value, whatever value, but not as much as when it was in its original form. So that's the question. Taking an onion, which we know is a davar charif, or we will know soon. We didn't really speak about onion per se. That's seed based, but we spoke about snon. So let's take snon. You cooked it. You cooked the radishes. All right. I've had a dish with cooked radishes, and I can tell you, it tastes a little bit like a radish, but it wasn't sharp. Sometimes when you eat a radish raw, you can taste the sharpness in it.
Are we talking about these little red things? Or
yeah.
It's not the big white one.
No, we're not talking about turnips. That we're going to be seeing a little bit later. There's something about turnips. Snon is a radish, and that is why you find it here in the shach. He brings down crane. It's supposed to be chrein.
Yeah.
But because in Yiddish, you don't have a word beginning with a chaf. It begins with a kaf. When you begin a word in Yiddish, you begin it with a kaf. You don't begin it like in Hebrew. Well, even in Hebrew you don't. You don't begin a word with a chaf. And in ches, it's not the real letter to use for chrein. Chrein is a cha, right? Like the ch in German. Okay, beginning.
Depends where you come
Depends where you come, yeah, and where in the position in the word, I should say, after a vowel or after a consonant.
No, also
Right.
where the person
And where he comes from.
Germans,
Yeah.
It's pronounced in French. So.
Right. Anyway, that's right. And it depends if it's a foreign word or not, and it's for sure pronounced different. Yeah. So anyway, so it says crane, but it means crane.
Okay.
What we call crane. So there's a question about it. And he brings down here, that a lot of people are matir crane. Because crane is already not, what's crane? Crane is made from beets and radish. But which radish? Not the small little red radishes.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what you were talking about.
Yes.
The radish where they make crane from. That's
Right.
pretty hot stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, but just
It can be.
It can be. Sure,
like
that's where we make
any-
maror from. That's where we make maror from.
Right.
Yeah, that's what you-
But there is a big difference between when and what you get at. Junk.
Of course.
Adulterated. Real crime.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's the question about which is he talking about here.
Yeah.
Real
Is he talking about the stuff meats?
He
or
is.
just
No.
chopped?
Yeah.
Chopped horse meat.
Well, not necessarily. I don't know.
Well, when he allows it, I'm sure he's talking about mixed. because
Yeah,
chopped
yeah,
horseradish
exactly.
can be extremely.
Now, with I make maror every year, and I can tell you something that it does not last. The sharpness of it does not last too long. And if you want to make it last, there's a way of how to cover it and put it in the fridge and so forth, aluminum foil or plastic wrapped, or there's a way to do it.
Right.
And it also depends on how you process it. You do it fine chopped, otherwise it loses. It really loses. You can start eating
Right.
spoonfuls and
Right.
you won't
It
be
doesn't taste
affected.
like much.
And it doesn't taste like much.
Right.
So so you almost see from that alone that even if I didn't cook it, with time it also loses its potency.
Now, the question,
But here crane I think is the mixture of beets. Could be.
there's
Yeah.
another question though.
Yeah.
The question is, when we say a davar harav,
Right.
rejuvenates the eno ben yomo and greases the
Sure.
bliya, are we saying that it's the of the harav that accomplishes? Or are we saying that there is something in the nature of food that makes it taste harav? That's how we can recognize this nature, and that this characteristic also, regardless of whether it's right now is tasting harav or not, it has a chemical in there that normally when it's fresh makes it taste harav, and that chemical releases the blue. Even
Yes.
if it doesn't taste harav anymore.
Right. There's some who say that the way the reaction occurs,
If it still
nothing to
tastes
do with the double chorif itself.
harav. Right, it's not the harif.
It's
as
the,
an
yeah, it's what it does to the food. Is that what you're saying?
Well-
Once it comes in contact with the food,
But what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
when it comes in contact, let's say with a knife,
yeah.
it doesn't necessarily have to be sharp taste that I taste on my tongue,
Right.
which affects the knife doesn't have.
Right.
Maybe there's a chemical in there that has both attributes. When it's fresh, it has a sharp taste on the tongue, and that same chemical, regardless of whether it's fresh, also has that ability
When it
to
comes in
release the
contact,
blias.
when it comes in contact with a knife.
Even if my tongue doesn't register any sharpness anymore, but it
Yeah.
has retained perhaps
Yeah.
that chemical ability to release this. Doesn't necessarily have to be the exact same phenomenon.
Yeah, I
that
saw
I'm
that. I
talking
saw that diyun by Machlel Shvach with Eno ben Yoimo. Is it
And that could be the basis why of that position that holds even if it's cooked.
right?
Because you don't taste the sharpness, but it still has the chemical.
But then
Right.
it shouldn't make a difference between whether it's because the chemical is still going.
No, the enobenoma goes on the blias, not on the sharp thing.
No. So what I saw was, if I remember correctly, was that it's not that the spices make the blias Machlel Shvach. They are stale where they are, but once they come out,
Due to the
spice, they become sweetened again.
right. And the question is
So
that
that's what so that's
And the
yeah.
question is that talui on the taste of that spice, or
Okay.
is it talui on
Yeah.
some chemical ability?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Then
Yeah,
getting back to the moral.
yeah,
If you use that, you say the next day.
right. So we'll be dealing with it.
Bleeders or not.
So that's one of the
Have no taste to it at all.
yeah, that's one of the questions that we'll talk about soon in Steve Bayes.
But really, that question, what I just said, arises from the position of even if you cooked the fish
Yes,
and you don't taste any sugar, it still retains the original.
exactly.
Or
Exactly.
pull out the
Even if you don't
or
taste it,
the
there's
second.
something there that does it.
Exactly.
That's the machlekas. That's the machlekas. Yeah, sure. Now, as far as the Davar Charif Shenis Bashel, something that was cooked. The Pischei Tshuva brings down here an example with onions. That with onions, he says, this particular example, onion, not necessarily with everything else, Botlo Charifusa. Their charifus goes away. That does not mean, however, he explains that this would apply to everything. Like what Ilan said, it could be that with other things, even though it has changed in flavor, there could be something there. But regabe onions, he holds at least botlo charifusa. What?
Who are we talking about?
Pischei Tshuva. He brings down that as far as onions. Now remember, he has, as we say, he can express that opinion very easily because he has the ability to rely on ashle ravrevi, as the expression goes, on big trees. Why? Because onions, first of all, may not be something which is considered a davar charv according to the shittas who hold only tznon, echiltis. So since you have that, right, and you have not bar not, you have other issues that can help out. So you for sure can go ahead and say, if it's cooked, we know it's lost. We do know for a fact that it lost some of its sharpness. And you can rely on that it's not as a problem. Now that would be also b'diavad, not lechatchila. I don't think anybody would allow for lechatchila.
That was going to be when you have such a as to whether a particular falls into a category. You don't have a dispute regarding to the halacha of that category. Everyone agrees that category. Yeah. The question is, does this fit under the title of that category? What do you call this kind of dispute? Is it a rabbanan? Is it a raisa? What's this kind of dispute of whether a mitzvah is under a particular?
Well, sometimes a question of metzias is not a suffix, as we've covered this by sveikas in the metzias. Right.
There's agreement, like in this case.
Right.
Is an onion.
So here,
here
it's not so much everybody's in agreement that there's not a question about the metzias, that it's not as charif as it was before.
No. Yeah. We're saying that it's
a
question whether onion is part of this din, or it's only chilzes and radish, or whether onion is also in that category of.
Right, that's not a suffix in the metzias so much.
I didn't say it was a suffix. Machlokes.
That's a machlokes. Yeah.
Right. So
whether it applies across the board, and those were only examples that the Gemara used.
Right.
Or it could be the Gemara said only these.
So is this a machlokes that? What is the status of such a machlokes? Is this a machloikas regarding
how you learn the Gemara?
Yoraisa, or is it machloikas the garlic?
We spoke about it last time about if you hold that this is the rice or it's a whole or the whole thing is a rabbanan. Once you determine that there is tam, then it's a deraisa. In other words, if you say that tam has come out, the combination of the ducha, the sakina with the davar charv, if you determine that tam has come out, then what's the question? But if tam is the deraisa. That's one opinion.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's one opinion.
It's still, that's one way of learning it. But there are some who hold it's the rice and some who hold it's the rice.
Oh, so there is it's a machlokes if it's a rabbanon.
Oh yeah, sure.
So what is that? Do we say in a machlokes like that it's the chumrah because
we're talking about by eino ben yoimo.
Yeah, good.
Right.
Okay. Right. So we say by such a machlokes that we can be. Or do we have to say it's the right? The machlokes doesn't help.
You can be mitzaref it. If you have additional antemas, we will see. I have here somebody that I saw who quotes that if you have the following three tzirufim, you can for sure rely on that. We'll get to that in a moment. All right, so we saw nisbashal. The next example would be some davar chorov that became this yabish, that became dry. Yovish, a davar chorov yovish. It's dry. Now, what would be an example of something dry?
Garlic powder.
Exactly. One possibility is talking about spices. In other words, those are asking this question, that pose this question, are asking about spices. Spices is a good example of a davar chorv that is yovish. It's not. It was not just picked from the ground. It went through a process. What would you say about a piece of radish that I've cut open? And I've left it like this in the fridge or outside for a couple days. Would that be yovish? Or does yovish really mean really, really dry without any moisture to it? No, I'm going to cut it again and use it for something else. For Melicha, that's the question. Can I use it now? Or I did b'diavad. Does that radish in its present state still pose the same problem? Is it called a yovish? I'm not sure myself if that would be yovish if it still has moisture in it. So I think Yovesh means completely dry. And completely dry, one example would be spices. Yeah. So anyway, you have a machlokes on that too. The Shach brings in the name of, in the B'Shem Isa Beheter, that with a double Chorif Yovesh, all you would require is Hadacha. It says because it doesn't really have the power to take out, apparently. If it's Yovesh, it's Yovesh. But the Dogel Miravava, one of the Forshim here, Dogel Miravava, here's on that he says, but wait a minute. How could you say that? I mean, that's the next Seif, in Seif Gimel, we'll get to next week in Hashem, talks about spices, specifically about spices, Shenidochu b'meducha. If you took I forget what they call those grinders, you know.
Mortar and pestle.
Mortar and pestle, yeah. And there's different ways and different tools to accomplish that. He says that's Seif Gimel is talking about. And over there we see it is a problem with spices. Okay, we're not talking about cooking, we're not talking about cutting, but we're talking about meducha. You know, pressure. It's a form of pressure, and that's why that form of pressure also is a problem with a ben yom at least. So the Dogma Rousseau says, so the Shach, why do why just say, oh, it's not a problem? Well, it is. Siv Gimel speaks about that even if tavlin are dry. So he answers his own question. He says that obviously in Siv Gimel we're talking about it's a problem because of the pressure of the meducha too, together with the tavlin. Then it could be a problem.
No, so what about here? The pressure of the knife. Are you talking about Dukta the Sakina here? Don't we have a problem? I mean, no one is saying if you use a spoon somewhere, you're going to have.
Yeah, he doesn't say. I thought about that too, because what would be the difference between a meducha and a sakin? Mm-hmm. He brings down like this: right? Well, if he's for us a shach tzarich loyma, that he says it's mutter. How the tavlin nesorim b'meducha, the hosom tavlin yevation, hainu mishum the meducha yesh trei tamil esor. Karifus meducha, in other words, it's like a base or shechimutzu kosher, kimevur sham beisav v'charifus a tavlin. So you have those two disadvantages. That's all.
Are we saying this is a greater pressure, a greater...
That's the way I understood it, that it could be a greater pressure.
Greater.
Yes, that's the way I understood it. I thought, wait a minute, it should be pretty much the same. There's some pressure, and what difference would it make if it's dry? I mean, if we say here it's a problem, then why shouldn't there be a problem with the sakin? I mean, with the sakin, it was assuming it was dry. Because all the Shach says is called Dover Chor b'Shem the Yisur Beheder. Called v'chol Dover Chor Yovesh Muter B'Adacha. No problem. So anyway, it could be, as he explains, that with the meducha it might be a little bit different. Yeah. Anyway, Dr. Moshe, as he brings down the Minchas Yaakov Chavas Das Pri Megodim, and also Smashman and Mikvaot Eiger, that were machmer. Halacha l'maisa, if you want to know that by Dover Yovesh, even if it's dry, using a knife, a kosher in the meducha, it appears that just about everybody's machmer on it. Yeah, even if it's dried, spices and things like that, because apparently there's still something there. All right. Now, I did find something that I totally forgot. We spoke about the Ramah. We spoke about the Ramah in Tzadik Hey is machmir on spices being used in a kdera. Remember that? That in order to make a kli eino ben yoma ben yoimoy, there's several ways you can accomplish that, right? One is spices were used to be cooked in that pot.
But we said it has to be a amount.
So therefore, yes, it's also true that it has to be a significant amount of spices where the stew is really, really spicy, not just a couple of jalapenos, right? Something really in order, right, to make it very spicy. And from what we could see in the Mechaber, that was the question, at least I had. It doesn't appear to be that the Mechaber was concerned about that at all. That if anything, it's only because of the Ducha, the Sakina, that we have a problem. Who's to say, how do you know that if you just throw a few spices, a considerable amount of spices, into this pot and you cook it, you didn't just let it sit in, you cooked it, why should that be a problem? The Ramah says it is. And I realized that the Mechaber actually did mention it in Taaruvot. Forgot about it. The Halacha that he says in Taaruvot in Kuf Gimel, where he talks about the Noisen Tam of Gam. Yesh Mishomer. Now he does say Yesh Mishomer. It's in other words, not everybody's machmer, but Yesh Mishomer Shim Samu Pilpelin. If you put, somebody says if they put pilpelin, hot peppers, bigdera shel isur, right? Not basar challah, bigdera shel isur. She'eino bas yoyma, hakol asur. Why the churfe mashvin el shvach? So he explains on his own because the churfe, the sharpness, is going to transform it to shvach. Okay, first of all, that's a yesh mishoyma. In other words, there is such an opinion, and apparently there are some who go by this opinion. What's important to keep in mind, however, that there's a difference. They speak a little bit about that Mechaber and Mechaber's sheet in here in this Siman, because it appears to be a little bit of a steer, because there he's very concerned about Eino ben Yoima, right? According to that Yesh Mishomer. And here he was not so concerned about Yesh Mishomer, because here he brought down in Tzadik Vav, he brought down the Halacha, and then he tells us Yesh Oimrim, and we have a klal in the Mechaber. Stam v'yeshom malacha kastam. When he says this is the halacha, but yesh oimrim differently, how does he hold? He holds like the first opinion.
Although the truth is, I'm who said that's not all.
Could be, yeah, you're right. It may not be always the case. But anyway, so they talk about this apparent difference in the Mechaber. Here he's not concerned. In Taaruvot he says, there are some who say that if you put these hot peppers and you cook. By the way, when it says over there in Kuf Gimel and Taaruvot, there are some who say if you put, the Meforshim explain, it doesn't mean just to put, it means cooking.
Yeah, sure.
So even though he says if you put pilpelim in the kdera, you will make the Eino ben Yoma a ben Yoma because of Machal Shvach, it's talking about you actually cooked it. And like Ilan said before, you didn't just put a little bit, you put a lot. That's a very important condition. In the Ramah says that too. We're talking about he actually put a considerable amount. So how does the Mechaber, why is he concerned there more than here? Here he doesn't really hold like that by Eino ben Yoma. So the answer is that over there he's talking about Isura. Here we're talking about Basar and Cholov, which are both Hetera. When you have both Hetera, you can say not bar not, according to some who say not bar not.
Yeah.
We don't say not bar not by Isura.
Yeah.
So that's why we still have the Kasha. I mean, not Kasha, we still have the difference between the Mechaber and the Ramot, that Mechaber would not necessarily be Machmer by Basar Cholov situations with cooking spices in the pot, as he is over there. Over there it's an Isura. So you don't have not bar not. If you cook, you're going to have not bar not, unless it's Isura. But here you're having Basar, or a Cholov situation.
So you're saying the Mechaber would agree, like over there, to some degree, that over here it's also Mechayel Shvach. No, but after it's with Mechayel Shvach, it's only a nut bar.
Exactly. See? Because by Basar, you cooked Basar in the pot, or Cholov in the pot. Okay, you filled it up with spice.
Now this is not worse than a Benyam Oblias, and Benyam Oblias, the
Exactly.
Mechaber permitted.
Yes. Because so what if it was spiced up? All right, it came out, but it's a not by not. Because it's hetera. It was no problem. I think that's a good explanation
very
for
nice.
it. Yeah. All right. So Sif Beis tells us the following: Im chotach bo shumen ubetzolem uchrishin betamcha shekorin krein. So if you did not use the radish, if you used a knife to cut garlic or onions or leeks, or similar vegetables that are like them, that are hot, mitvorim acharifim, and here comes the interesting addition, uferos chamutzim, and very, very acidy fruits, sour. There are some fruits that are very, very sour. And there's a whole it's very interesting to see that Achronim talking about, giving us a list of, is this yes, is this sour, is this not sour, is this qualify or not. So we'll go into that a little bit. But all he says here is perus chamutzim. V'dogim meluchim, very salty fish. Cod, they salt it. Very, very salty. Anchovies. Dinam shave lechtoch botznon. It's the same halachas like you cut a radish, where you would have a kedei netila, where you have to be concerned about eino ben yoima, where there is no nat bar nat and so forth. Mikol makom, he says, the Ramah says, mutar lechol mirkachas charifim shel oide kochavim. You can actually eat a mirkachas. It's like a medication. Mirkachas is not really a medication, but it's like a medication. It's when they put together certain herbal foods, certain condiments, and they use their tools for that, the knife. In other words, they cut it, they make a paste of it. They make a. Would you have another word for it, Ilan? For mirkachas? I think a paste is a good word. Yeah, they put they make of it a food of pure ginger, which is the example which the Ramah uses. Kemo zangavil, ginger. It's mutter. It says similar things. Why? How could you eat it? As long as, of course, you checked out there's no other ingredients. The yesh lahem kelim miyuchadim lechach. They use special kelim for that. They're not using their treif kelim to make the ginger. Or when they prepare it, they actually use their hands to remove it from the ground, and they don't even use that many tools. It's just their hands, perhaps. So anyway, with this, even though it's sharp, dealing with ginger and the like, when they make pastes, we don't have to be so concerned that they used the treif kelim.
Or because it's paste?
No, because of the way they prepare it. It's very specific. It's a certain paste. It's a certain thing they prepare for, even though they're using ginger, which is a davar charif, right? But because the process of making these candy, this paste, these herbal condiments, made out of ginger, are very specific, are very unique. They have tools for that. They don't go to the kitchen and bring out another tool for that. A fleischiker knife, that is a treif knife. Yeah, treif knife, yeah.
And he's not talking about...
No, he's talking about goyim that that's all they do.
There are many business
right.
factories.
Sure.
That's all they make in the factory.
Exactly. And you raise a good point. What if it's a factory that produces, besides this kosher item, other items through the same machine? That is what supervision is all about. They will tell you, even though this is 100% kosher, are you sure this company does not make anything else on that machine? And if they do, did they kosher the machine in between? You see, that's one of the problems in kashrus. You look at the thing is, what could be not kosher about this?
The thing is that in mass production,
Yeah.
very often you have light machines to make special items
Exactly, yeah.
that are running just that.
Exactly. If you know that, then there's no problem.
Well, you have to have someone there check it out.
You have to have somebody that checked it out and established that, okay, that's all that comes in here. You checked it out with Coca-Cola, they gave you permission.
It's easier with mass production than it is not like this paste.
Yeah, but it's depending on because for Pesach, for example, you would say milk. What could be wrong with me? Yeah, but in the same machine, they make chocolate milk too, which is kitnias.
They're making something else on that.
Right, yeah. So, yeah.
So according to the Ramah, with his lemons,
Yeah.
they cut the lives.
Right.
It would seem that you could really...
The
And
lemons?
the question on the Ramah is, what not? I would think we'll... No?
Hanan?
Yeah.
You're talking about Hanan? We mentioned
Taaruvot.
briefly. No, we're talking about the slice of the...
Lemons. The lemons, the guys who make juice.
Right.
So he had a whole cheshbon. The first one, it will be whatever knife will go into the of the lemon. But as he continues cutting, so then it's less and less because...
Oh, yeah. Less and less with
the
time.
ones that he did in the beginning are misbattled the roy.
Okay, you're talking about that with time it becomes less and less and less.
Less
of
and
an
less,
iser.
and less, and then you have a large amount of lemons.
That's if you that's if you
so
do.
The original ones that he started out where it was a lot, it was misbattled amongst all of them.
You're talking about a situation where, let's say, you have several onions. The first onion, the second, the third onion.
Lemons. You had the lemonade makers.
Okay, with lemonade, we'll talk about that. Yeah,
But no, but I thought that wasn't Taaruvot.
that's the siv dalet.
So
Limones,
Yeah.
limones.
No, but regarding the cutting, that wasn't in Taaruvot because
No, it's here.
here he talks about the Ramah talks about the knife.
Yeah, this is it. This is the one.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think this is the sieve you're talking about. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah, there is a situation where you cut more and more and more. It's less of a problem with the future.
So because of the overall quantity,
Overall,
volume,
yeah.
even
Yeah.
the first lemons, you look at it as a bottle.
Yeah.
Why don't you say the same in your a factory that manufactures different types of things?
Yeah, but they're doing it every day.
Huh?
They're doing it every day. The problem is every day it's happening.
Yeah, whatever he finishes doing the treatment.
Yeah, obviously,
Now
but
he
that's
starts
all.
to-
But that's all b'di'evet. Lechatchila, you're not going to allow for this.
Well, there were malachas at the Halacha to many.
Yeah, but the question is if it's mevatel isa lechatchila here. Means depends if you say. It's one of the issues. I mean, you can find heterim. You know, the question is which hashgacha.
Yeah, I'm just saying, according
Yeah.
to Ramah, it seems
Yeah.
like maybe one could say that it would be okay.
Under certain circumstances, yeah, it could
Same
be.
argument.
Because here, as it is, you have other heterim. But anyway, all right. So what do we see from Siv Beis? The main idea behind Siv Beis is that the Mechaber takes the halacha from Aleph and says, don't think it's only tznonu. The vast majority, actually, of poskim hold that we take that halacha and apply it to anything which is chorev, even though some say no. And it's important that we know some say no, because we do use it sometimes, we may need to use it as an additional heter. There are some that hold that what should we use? An orange is not necessarily something which is a davar chorev, even though it's acidy, right? So it's important to know that not everybody holds, but we hold the halacha l'maisa, we're machmer by all other things that are similar to shumin, to tznon, like radishes and onions and leeks and so forth. And guess what? Even vodka, whiskey,
How about
as a mashk, and arak too.
now you got me.
I saw it. I wouldn't tell you unless I saw it inside. I think the Aruch HaShulchan, I forget. The Aruch HaShulchan goes through it a little bit. He actually says, I was surprised, he says that pickled cucumbers are okay, even though they're pickled, because we know vinegar, several points can bring down vinegar as being a double chorev. So it could be because the pickles, the cucumbers, they have a whole bunch of things in. So the cucumber itself, which is not a double chorev, even though it was pickled,
Cucumber, of course.
it's not a double chorev, but even though it was pickled, it does not really become a double chorev. The choimetz itself, the vinegar itself, may be a problem, right? Being used in a pot or things like that. But to make the cucumber double chorev, the Aruch HaShulchan, at least I was looking through it, he also brings a list of things like apples and all these things, would they be a double chorev or not, even though they may have some acidity. So, fish, we're talking about, by the way, some fish that are very salty. Even though, actually, I saw the Yad Yehuda,
Spanish mackerel.
mackerel's not so much.
What was it called?
Anchovies,
Anchovies,
cod.
the one that you rinse off?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah. That
Spanish
once you wash it,
But yeah.
it's like mevasho.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Spanish
Yeah, whatever, yeah. So there are certain fish that are very, very salty, and some ask on that. Wait a minute, Melicha kereseach. If you salt something very, very much, it's mavliya bekuloi. You can actually make the whole, not just a kedei natila. Anyway, but because there are some who do not hold Melicha kereseach, that's why we're not going to be machmir on dagi meluchim, salty fish, more than a kedei natila, because there are some who hold that it's not necessarily Melicha, and there are other sfeikas. Otherwise, he has a good point here, the one who asks about Meliach Keroiseach. But we're not going to be machmir here, since there are others who don't hold that.
The state of the fish or the way that it's processed?
No, the way it's processed, yeah. The fish itself is not... only when it's salty, yeah, when they really preserve it and so forth. Real quickly about... I put together a small list of Dvarim Charifim. Pri Megadim here brings down, the Chochmas Sodom brings down, that we're machmir on quite a few things. He says we're also machmir that the sakin besakin mekunachas. In other words, even if it's a clean knife, we're machmir. We're machmir also legabe nat barnat, that we don't hold nat barnat. We're machmir that we don't hold that eino benyama will help. Right. So the Pri Megadim Lemaisa says that all those things that came up here that one may maybe want to be lenient, we're machmir on them. That's, if you want to know halacha l'maisa, we're machmir on them. Not by not, dvarim charifim by other things, that even if the knife is clean. Now, he does say, however, that if you have the three of them, three tziruf, and this is the important point that Eli was telling you before, that if you have something which is not a radish, a knife which is fleshik, a knife that is clean, or a milchika, right? That will make a difference because some are going to hold nat bar nat on that. And you also have an eino ben yoima, then you could be lenient. So if you have all those conditions, you have a situation that was cooked, and you may not have shishim kedid in the tila, but the sake was not ben yoima. He cut a lemon. He didn't cut a radish, okay? And it was clean. All right? So, ein ben yoima, clean, and it wasn't a radish, then you have enough tzirufim to say that this is okay, b'di'evet. The very sour fruits the Chochmas Sodom brings down, you can be lenient b'mokom hefsed too, because sour fruits, I mean, not everybody agrees. And then, is this a sour fruit or not? So there are others fake it. So the Chochmas Sodom says if it's b'mokom hefsed, you don't have to worry about it. But jalapenos, all the hot peppers and all the spices, all the hot spices, are included. The Taz over here says even borscht is soury enough. Now he must be talking about a very soury borscht, not just plain beet. The Aruch HaShulchan says that it would have to be a very, very soury borscht. I think it's because with lemon juice and other ingredients. Just plain beet juice is not sour. The Shach here includes even olives. And I think the Mishnah Berurah also goes along with that in Orach Chaim. That some fruits have a certain acidity that pretty much are equivalent. Like you were saying, there's an ingredient there that may be strong enough to bring out the tam. So we're machmer in that. All right, just to finish up, I have a good question. Rabbi Elyahu brings down a good question. You cut a davar charif with a Melicha knife. Okay, so you cut a davar charif, let's say a radish. Okay, you cut it with a Melicha knife. Can you eat it, that radish, after you just had steak, or do you have to wait 6 hours? Mikvaot says, wait 6 hours. If you cut a radish with a Melicha knife, I'm assuming it's ben yomo, or if you're machmer, even ein yomo. But anyway, let's say ben yomo. Don't eat it after you just had meat. Wait 6 hours, because that onion that you're going to eat, without tznon, I should say, is melichix. Others I saw are mekel in that. Rabbi Elyahu gave a tshuva on this. He says it's only a chumrah. You don't have to be machmer. It's a chumrah. The halacha lemaisa, it doesn't hold.
Well, what I don't understand is, if I have a glass and rinse out my mouth,
right,
we hold, I can go ahead
and have meat. Right.
Why would I be more machmer if all I'm doing is I'm having it?
Because you had meat first. Remember, you had meat first.
Oh, you're talking about we had meat.
You had first meat.
I understood you were saying.
No. You had meat. You had steak. You had meat for dinner. Now you want to eat this snon that was cut with a Melicha knife. So the Mikvaot says wait 6 hours. Well, we're not machmer in that. Now, Rabbi Kiva Eger brings down the opposite. You cut the onion, or you cut, I should say, the snon with a fleishik knife, and you ate it. Can you have milk? Can you have a glass of milk now? He says it's very different. If you cut a tznon with a fleishik knife and you ate it, you didn't eat meat. You can go ahead and have a glass of milk after that, because the only time we wait 6 hours is when you actually had real meat or tam of meat. But this is so minute that having eaten a radish that was just cut with a fleishik knife does not constitute having eaten.
Well, why would it constitute eating milk? In the first case.
In the first case, it's a little bit.
Milk?
Yeah, it's a little bit more.
I would think that it constitutes eating meat
to the
same degree.
It's called a milk. No, that's why Rabbi Elyahu says it's really only a chumrah. You're right.
If you're going with the chumrah, okay.
Yeah, no, it's only. He's saying it's only.
It's a chumrah.
Yeah, but this one is less even. Okay.
Then I don't see why it would be less.
Yeah. In that one, he says, well, you ate flesh. This is a Melicha onion. This is a Melicha radish.
Maybe that's the basis why Rabbi Elyahu says only a chumrah.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's because you're right. It's almost the same, but it's a little bit more of a.
I don't see. The tznon became dairy to the exact same degree that the tznon became meat.
Maybe there's a different. Or milky.
Anyway,
we don't make such a
I can understand what you're saying, but apparently Rabbi Kiva Eger just says that here there's no question.
So I'm saying, so maybe
here there's no question.
That's what
the other one.
So then maybe that's why Rabbi Elyahu says the other one is a chumrah.
Yeah, that could be. Like you're saying,
is Rabbi Kiva Eger in mind. So Rabbi Kiva Eger is kind of permitted. It can only be a chumrah.
Yeah. No. I'm saying he said it's only a chumrah, but you don't even have to be machmer because in Lemais it's mutter.
Because he permits it.
Yeah, obviously. All right. I thought
that. If you read it one way, you should put it the other way.
Anyway, I thought it was an interesting point. You don't have to worry about it then. Okay, we'll stop here.
No, I'm really.